you love puppies, or dragons, or witches, maybe boy bands, or summer camp, or parkour, then cozy up and settle in. This rainbow of stories is for you. Here is an excerpt from Girl's Best Friend by Lisa Jenn Bigelow. It is part of the short story collection This Is Our Rainbow, which is edited by Katherine Locke and Nicole, Melleby. You wouldn't guess it by looking at her, but Roxy Bellwether was a witch. She could brew a mean anti-pimple potion and fast forward through ads with a blink of her eyes. In other words, she was pretty good, yet no one at school had a clue. Most magic users lived where they could practice freely, in the middle of nowhere or in big cities, where normal meant nothing. Not Roxy's family. Her father's passion for medieval manuscript had plopped them at the edge of a straight-laced college town. People wrote nasty posts on the neighborhood message boards if you painted your mailbox the wrong color. Witchcraft would not go over well. When Roxy grew up, she could move wherever she wanted. In the meantime, she longed for a friend she could trust with her secret. Next to the Bellwethers was a paint-peeled cottage that had sat vacant for months. When a moving truck pulled up in late June, Roxy's mother set her to baking a tuna casserole for the new neighbors. Magic would have made the job faster, but some things were best done the ordinary way. No shortcuts. They walked across the lawn to deliver it. A girl with twining dark hair opened the door. Roxy blinked. It was Tess Thomas. Tess had moved to the ritziest neighborhood in town last fall. The Kingfisher Cove clique had immediately absorbed her. But to Roxy, only Tess's trendy clothes fit the part. Her eyes always seemed to be studying something far away. Sometimes her lips quirked, or she said something that made her friends laugh, but her expression quickly misted over again. Tess, Roxy felt sure, was a girl with a secret, too. And now she stood in the doorway of the ramshackle cottage. Roxy fizzed with curiosity. Curiosity and hope. "Hi," Tess said. "Hi," said Roxy. Their mothers beamed and sent the girls out to play as if they were 6 instead of 12. It was weird. Now that Roxy had Tess to herself, she had no idea what to say besides, "What the almighty heck are you doing here?" And that seemed a bit rude. "So, want to see my house?" Roxy asked. Tess shrugged and followed her. The Bellwethers' shaggy gray dog bounded up as they entered. He barely glanced at Roxy, heading straight for the newcomer. Tess's face lit up as he barreled into her, tail thumping. "Hello there, handsome. What's your name?" "Jackalope," Roxy said. "Jackie for short." She craned her neck toward the kitchen. She hoped nothing incriminating lay in plain sight. No jars of pickled frog's feet or neon pink potions simmering on the stove, but there was only the aftermath of the tuna casserole. Tess rubbed Jackie's ribs. His back paw began to thump. "Do you have a dog?" Roxy asked, hoping for an in. Instead, Tess's expression dimmed. Her hand stopped. Jackie whined. "Not anymore," she said. "Oh, I'm so sorry." Roxy waited for Tess to continue. Had her dog died or gotten lost? But Tess only straightened and asked to see Roxy's room. At dinner, Mrs. Bellwether said, "Tess's mom works full-time. and money's too tight for camp. I told her Tess can come over any time. I hope that's okay." "Did she say why they moved here?" Roxy asked. It's not really our business," said Mrs. Bellwether. "Our job is to be good neighbors and friends. Can you do that?" Roxy didn't stop to think about it. Yes. Being a good friend was easier said than done, of course. Fortunately, Jackalope was happy to help. Whenever Tess started to fidget with her phone, Roxy would say, "I know, let's play fetch with Jackie," or "Let's walk Jackie to the corner store," and Tess would agree. When it was rainy, they watched movies with Jackie curled on the couch between them. One day Roxy hooked up the old baby trailer to her bike, and they rode to the lake with Jackie in tow. He rushed in after a family of ducks, barking his head off, then rushed back out when he realized the water was wet. He shook himself, drenching the girls. It was the first time Roxy heard Tess really laugh, a throaty outburst too wild to contain. Their eyes met, a light and a thrill went through Roxy. This was the moment of connection she'd been waiting for. Summer glowed brighter after that. Still, a fog always crept in eventually, miles of it separating them. Often it happened when Roxy asked an ordinary question like where Tess's father was, or whether Tess had any siblings, or whether she kept in touch with her Kingfisher Cove friends. Tess gave short, vague answers. Dead. Sort of. Not really. Each time she was lost to Roxy the rest of the day. Probably Roxy should have known better. Who would move from Kingfisher Cove into that crummy cottage if they had the choice? Whatever had happened to Tess's family, it couldn't have been good. Roxy stopped asking questions, her friendship with Tess at a foggy standstill. Only Jackalope could break through the clouds. Tess made such a fuss each time she saw him that Roxy had a new secret, an embarrassing one. She was jealous of her dog. She wanted more than anything for Tess to smile. For real. At her. Roxy tested Malcolm, her closest warlock friend, telling him about Tess's mysterious, misty expression. What should I do? Because she could do anything with the right spell. She could make Tess confess her secret. She could make her forget it altogether. But just because you could do it didn't mean you should. Messing with people's minds was the worst kind of magic. What's the big deal? Malcolm asked. She's mundane. How interesting could her secret possibly be? Roxy bristled, but he had a point. She and Tess were having fun. Why wasn't that good enough? But she knew why. Roxy longed for a friend who knew everything about her and accepted her just the same. If Tess trusted Roxy with her secret, then maybe Roxy could trust Tess with hers. One day after Tess left in her usual haze, Roxy told Jackalope, I bet she'd tell you what's up. Jackie cocked his head as if he understood perfectly. I know, Roxy said. I'm being ridiculous. Then she stopped. She texted Malcolm again. Help me with something? He responded immediately. Is it about that girl? Maybe, she said, unwilling to admit her motives were that obvious. Her phone rang. Malcolm's face appeared singing. Roxy's got a crush. It's not a crush, Roxy retorted. She'd watched friends moon over other kids, movie stars, teachers. They dreamed about kisses and dates, weddings and babies. This wasn't that. She simply wanted to spend every spare minute with Tess. She wanted to know what she was thinking, share secrets and opinions, explore every inch of town on their bikes, to snuggle under a blanket watching a movie, leaning her head on Tess's shoulder, holding her hand while Jackalope snored beside them, to share her magic with her and know she wouldn't freak out or treat her any differently. She didn't need more. She didn't want more. She tried to explain, and for once, Malcolm listened quietly. She asked, "Is there a word for what I feel?" "Yes," Malcolm said. "You have a squish." "A squish," she echoed. "Like a crush, but platonic. You're not looking for some ooey-gooey romance. You want to be friends. Good friends." "Best friends?" Roxy asked. "Maybe even better than best," Malcolm said. It wasn't grammatical, but somehow it made perfect sense. "I have a squish on Tess," Roxy said. The words were sweet and tangy, like blackberries on her tongue. "Now," Malcolm said, "what are you going to do about it?" Roxy told him her idea. And this has been a preview from This Is Our Rainbow.